Hi guys, my name is Karthik and I'm from EasyAutomation.com and welcome to another video of our test project video series. And this video we'll be talking about the parameterized test execution with JUnit 5 using the @parameterized test attribute. So this is another interesting way of automating the tests, which is nothing but the coded test in TestProject's OpenSDK, and using the @parameterized test option of JUnit to pass the data into the coded test using the TestProject's UI as well as from within your code. So the parameterized option is something which we already have in TestProject, which we already know. We could pass the parameter using the parameters tab, something like this. We have discussed about it a lot. I mean, there are many different ways that we can pass the parameter using either the static value or using the CSV, and now using this new parameterization provider from TestProject's OpenSDK option. And I will show you what it is basically. So the JUnit actually has got a new @parameterized test attribute. This is recently added. If you're not aware of that, then this video is going to give you some information about that as well. And this is something which is already supported out of the box by TestProject's OpenSDK, and we'll be seeing how it actually works. All right, so let's see this in action. All right, so this is the very basic bare minimal Java project. And you can see that this is compiled with JDK version 11. So make sure that you use JDK version 11 because we are going to be uploading this particular test in the TestProject's platform once we write the coded test over here. That's why it's version 11. So that is the most important requirement that we need to make sure to have. And then I'm going to make sure that I'm going to have all these repositories, dependencies. And then we need to build this particular project and upload it into the TestProject's platform, which can be done using build script, something like this. So it actually requires you to have a Maven jar plugin and then Maven assembly plugins. And once you have this, then you need to create a descriptor file, which is going to be sitting over here it can be anywhere, but I'm just going to be putting on the Java, and then I'm going to create a package or folder, whatever. I'm going to call this as assembly. And within this particular assembly, we are going to create a file, something like this. And this particular test jar.dependency file is going to include these metadata for our jar file itself. That's it. So this is the only thing that we need to give. And once we have all these details, we are pretty good to go. And these are something we have already discussed while we're discussing how we can upload a test by building the test as a jar file and upload it into the TestProject platform. That's exactly the same thing it is. I'm just reiterating it so that you can have a refreshed memory of how these things will be done. That's it. And once we have all these details, then we are pretty good to go and start building our code over here. So the first thing which I'm going to do over here is I'm going to create a new test class, which is going to be something like first class, probably maybe first test. And this particular first test is going to be holding our actual test itself. Well, we are going to be writing the OpenSDK code over here. So we are going to say like public static web driver of driver over here. And then we need to write what is called as the setup code, which is going to be required for our setup operation to be done, which I'm going to be doing pretty much something like this. You can see that over here on the setup, I'm just doing the driver builder of the Chrome driver, and the with project name is going to be the project name, which I'm going to be getting it from the environment variable. And even the token I can get from the environment variable. I'm just going to leave this guy as it is. And then the job name, and then the build, something like this. So this token is something which is sitting over here. These things are not even going to be required while we try to build this particular project and upload it into the TestProject platform. It is just for the local development purpose. I have this guy over here, right? So that's it. This is the only thing that we need to have. And then we need to start writing the parameterized test itself. So in order to write the parameterized test, all I'm going to do is I'm going to write a method over here like test in app, something like this. And then I'm going to give probably final string of name. And this guy is going to hold some of the code which I'm going to be passing in. These things are going to be pretty much exactly the same. I'm in fact going to use the TestProject's website itself so that I could able to see that very clearly, like how easy it is. Even you can use that same portal to see how you can test a simple application of yours. So I'm going to be using the example.testproject.io, and then I'm going to send the name and then the send keys of the password, something like this. And I'm going to click the login button. That's it. This is what I'm going to be doing. But the name is something which is going to be coming from our parameters. And this is where the JUnit's parameterized test comes in. So I'm going to be calling the parameterized test, and then I'm going to be calling the display name, and I'm going to say probably execute first test, something like this. And then I'm going to give the value source here. And this value source is going to be, I mean, it can be of any type. And the one which I'm going to be giving is the strings type over here. And this strings type is going to be a single string, or it can be an array of strings. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to test with the username as Karthik and Prashant and probably Robert, something like this. I'm just going to save this guy over here. And now I'm also going to write the tear down code over here, something like after all, right? That's it. And now let's try to run this test and see what's going to basically happen. So this test is actually going to be running within our test project's agent itself, because you can see that I have the test project agent up and running over here, and it is currently running using test project over here. And you can see that all the test has got completely executed, and it has used the name as Karthik, Prashant and Robert for us over here. So these are the parameters which are coming up for us automatically, and we could be able to pass the value over here. So this is the normal JUnit test. Even you will be using it in the parameterized test before, but now the challenge is how we can use this parameterized test into TestProject's platform. That's where we are going to be using the new feature of the test project itself. So that's the whole reason why we are even talking about these details in this particular video. So we are going to be using what is called as an argument source of JUnit, and we are going to be using a new class called as TestProject Parameterizer .class. So this TestProject Parameterizer is going to be coming from the io.testproject.sdk interface.parameterization, and this is what I was talking about. So this one is going to replace the whole ball game of what we have passed over here. At the moment, this is not going to hold any data for us like Karthik, Prashant or Robert, but this is going to be taking the value for you straight from the test project's platform instead of you specifying it on the hard-coded value over here. Because the problem is, let's say if you don't even have this particular value over here, and if you're just going to use this value source, if you try to upload this particular code within test project platform, you will always see the same value going to be repeated each and every time, even though it's a coded code. In order to override that particular functionality, we are going to be using this argument source of TestProject Parameterizer, which can help you to override the value, and then you can specify the value that you're going to be passing in, which is pretty cool. So I'm just going to save this code over here. I'm in fact going to get rid of the token because we don't really need to do that. So this is the only code that we have got. And now I'm just going to go to the Parameterized file, probably on the Maven jobs, going to the life cycle. I'm going to compile the project. It's done. And then I'm going to package the project, which is done. And now let's try to open this in Finder, which is this one. And we have target and we have the code over here. So this is the jar file that we're looking for. And now I'm going to go to the test project over here to my project, and I'm going to create a new test. I'm going to select the code. These are something we have already discussed many times, but the functionality that we're talking about is not something we have discussed before. So I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to drag this jar file, drop it over here, and upload the jar file. That's it. This way you can see that we are actually uploading our code that we have written, the parameterized test code, and you will see that the code will actually be using the test project's parameterizer instead of the hard-coded value that we were using before. So you can see that the code has been uploaded, and you can see all the things are coming up. And it also shows us that there is a field name which is of type string, and there is an argument description over here, and it is in direction of input. So it automatically identifies that this test actually has got an input parameter which has to be passed over here, which is cool. So I'm going to say EA, or maybe TestProject Parameterized EA test, something like that. And I'm going to hit next. I'm going to hit start testing. So you will see that there is going to be a symbol called as package, which is pretty much we know before. But we also have a new option, something like this, where it is going to hold this execute first test that we have actually created over here, the execute first test on the display name that you can see here. That's what is actually coming up. And you can also see that you can change the input parameter this time. And this input parameter is going to get you the args that you're going to be passing in. So here you can actually pass the argument, something like Karthik, if you wanted to. And now if you try executing this particular test by selecting the agent which is running in my Mac, and then you can see arg0, which is going to be the Karthik. And you can see that the argument currently shows as the input value parameter as Karthik over here. You can override this data using the data source, something like the user data over here. I mean, this user data is not something which I have created for this test purpose, so I'm not going to choose this guy. Rather, I'm just going to use the override default input parameter, something like Karthik over here. And once I start executing it, and once I go to the show in monitor, you will see that my test is currently executing it over here. So this test is actually running based on the test execution details which I have specified on my coder test. And the test is currently going to run within my local machine using the TestProject agent, because you have the Chrome browser up and running. And you can see that the detail was Karthik, which has been entered over there. And I guess the test has been completed successfully. So now if I go to the report over there, you will see that we have this test, like execute first test, coming up, and it has the full reports and stuff. Everything is coming up automatically for us. So this is how we can use the parameterized test option in TestProject to run it and see how we can override the existing test data without any problem. But let's say if I want to really see how I can override the test data using the data source in the CSV file that I have got. So what I'm going to do is probably I'm just going to delete this guy completely. Delete anyways, and shows me the dependency of the test sitting up. And I'm going to say new data, and I'm just going to probably drop the file, and then I'm going to hit create. That's it. And I'm going to go to my test, and then I'm going to hit this run and select the agent. And this time I'm just going to use the data source, which is going to be this new data that I have got. And then I'm going to hit run button. So this way it is going to choose the data that I have specified on the Excel sheet or the CSV file, which is going to hold the data that I have got for my test as an input. And we'll see what's going to happen. So you can see that currently it is opening the browser, and you can see that it is inputting the user 2, user 3, user 4, something like that. So it is injecting all the different users that I have specified in my Excel file, which is going to be this one, like user 2, user 3, user 4, and user 5. And now if I go to the report over here, you will see that we have a lot of steps coming up based on the different users that I have specified. So that's it, guys. This is how we could able to use the parameterized test option of TestProject, package the test, and upload the test into the TestProject platform and run it in much easier fashion. Once again, thank you for watching this video, and you guys have a great day.